I would be enamored with a guy carrying the big reflector. And now I'm enamored with a guy holding the reflector for very different reasons. Right here. Right here.
Right there. A softer focus. Brooke, so many of the interviews I've read about you and watched about you kind of go straight to how at 11 months old you became a celebrity when you first appeared.
I was the original influencer.
Yeah, that's it. In a soap ad. And I wonder, looking back at that now, to have so much focus on your childhood as an adult, how does that feel?
I mean, in this day and age where everybody's hyper focused on everything all the time, it seems par for the course a little bit, but for it to have been the focal point for almost 60 years, it's odd. But it was a point in time when that's how we made a living. My dad wasn't. My mom didn't get alimony or anything like that, and he was always going to pay for my education until I got older, and then I did it. But it was the idea that you're focusing on something. I had no idea what I was doing at 11 months old. I wasn't exactly ambitious then, and it's an interesting trajectory because what if that hadn't happened? What if I didn't get the Ivory soap ad? Or what if Jodie Foster didn't get the Coppertone ad? Or, you kind of look back and you think, I wonder, did that have anything to do with it? Or was it just happenstance? And, she kept it up. I was able to work and we were able to pay our rent.
And do you look back and think there was kind of Brooke Shields, the public Brooke Shields through all of that period and through your teenage years, around whom there was kind of the movies and the maelstrom of controversy sometimes. And then there was Brooke, who was the kid, Brooke Shields, the teenager. Were you able to ever be just Brooke Shields, the teenager? Were there spaces you could find for that?
It was a theme that my mom really perpetuated. And when I say that, she wouldn't let me go to professional children's schools. I didn't get a high school equivalency test or certification that would allow me to just graduate from high school in, a couple months. I went to regular schools in the city and then a high school in New Jersey. And I think that all of those decisions that were made for me, but then also made by me as I got older, perpetuated me at the actual age I was in. Whenever we traveled, instead of being the only little kid, in Japan, my mom would bring my stepsister or my best friend. And so there was this little, we had this, we can make fun of people and giggle and be kids and not feel like I was the only one that was a kid in a sea of uncaring adults.
For all you, and it's been said of you before, Brooke, but for everything you went through so young and so consistently, the degree to which you are so level-headed about life is remarkable. I mean, it could have thrown, and there have been countless others who have been thrown off, and yet somehow you've managed, to retain a sense of calm in the storm, I suppose.
That topic has surprisingly come up a lot. It was a perfect storm in a way. I think there were many factors that contributed. Living in New York, going to regular schools, being raised by parents who were, had very strong standards for their own selves and their children. And then there was a stubbornness in me that didn't want anybody else to win. And so the negativity and the press and the vitriol and the attacks and the drugs and the alcohol and all these things, I wasn't going to let that win, because then I would have been a victim to something, and that infuriated me. And it did, even if I wasn't able to be articulate about it. And then I started at a young age. Let's say high school, really. I think I was doing my version of it younger, but I really started to delve into psychology and why people act a certain way, but the understanding of human behavior and what's reality and what isn't reality, what you have control over, what you don't have control over, was liberating to me. So I thought, oh, I can be smarter than this. Like, I don't have to become an addict because I don't like the way it looks and I may not survive it. Or I don't know, something in me just thought, oh no, I'm not gonna lose.
When I was reading about you, that word control is interesting in the context of your life.
Yeah.
Because there are lots of moments, it seems to me, where you have, even as a child, where you decided, I'm going to control this situation to the degree that I can.
Right.
Right? Whether it was your mother who was an alcoholic, or whether it was being on set. Were you conscious of kind of thinking, right, I need to be able to control something and this is how I'm going to do it?
I think I developed other things that fall into that category of survival. I was very neat. I was very organized. I was borderline OCD because if something felt out of control, I redid my file of facts or I refolded my sweaters or there was, and that's a function of being a child of an alcoholic as well, one of the many. But what's interesting about control is it can go either way. You know, you can say, I'm in control and therefore nobody can tell me what to do. It can flip to, no one can tell me I can't take drugs or no one can tell me I can't, shave my head and go whatever. Like, there's different ways of doing it. And so I always tried to look at the biggest view of a picture that I could and say, okay, what can I control? And then as I got older, control became something less worrisome, less toxic, less of a reaction. And it became, oh, I can actually, if there's something I don't like about myself, it's up to me. I can control changing that.
Were film sets nice places for you as a kid? Were they places where you felt in control or was...
I love them more than anything you can imagine. You talk about control, you get a call sheet. You have times on the call sheet. There's numbers and times and addresses.
I love the glee that is coming into your face.
And I have every single call sheet I've ever gotten from pretty baby on. And you know what to expect the next day. You know what time you're going to eat lunch. You know what the routine is. There's something so comforting about that because you know what to expect. And if you do your job well enough, they like you. And they reward you for that. Not with candy.
And then you get another call sheet.
Then you get another call sheet. Yeah, they don't kick you off. So, and then there's inside jokes and games with tape. And I used to have contests to prove that I could tear tape as fast as a gaffer, and I could do the flip under, and people marveled at it, and and then that was when we used to actually have the clapper that was, a chalkboard, and I would get to do the clapboard, and I had deep relationships with people.
Family? Like family?
Absolutely like a family, and it was so crushing each time we wrapped. That was something that sometimes took me a week to get over because you don't understand at a young age how you can be so close and then most of those people I never saw again. But everything when you're on a movie set that's why people think they fall in love a lot. It's because it's common. It's a common goal. You all are working together as a team to make the day, to get that, and it's it's a beautiful interactive experience where everybody's job is important. And, I knew for 4 months, I'd go to a new place. For the most part, my mom was safe.
Right.
Which was a big deal because she was either going to be at the hotel bar or at a pub in the neighborhood.
She still drank, but you knew she was safe.
Oh, don't get me wrong.
I was going to say.
She drank till the 2 minutes before she died.
I mean, I can see for you living with that with your mother, and then getting there and there's a call sheet. I mean, that's just perfect.
For an alcoholic, for a child of an alcoholic,
Yeah.
that's an elixir. That's just, and
That's safety.
it's safety, and it behooves them. You don't know that they really only care about the money and getting their, movie made or whatever, but to an 11-year-old or 15-year-old, it's a respite. And then they had to take care of her, so they had to have a Teamster on her that would drive her home. So now she's not driving. She can be hammered, but she's not driving. You're safe. You're having a good time. You get to maybe buy your apartment or a car.
Right.
So it was kind of a win-win, and the irony is that the movie sets were the sense of safety and normalcy, which is rare.
You described this sweet scene that you had. This, again, it feels to me like another control thing of separating yourself from the role, where the camera would stop rolling and you would, I don't know, what was it exactly? You would do that. As a what? As a...
I think, so I don't think I ever really looked at what I did as a craft. I was never nurtured as an actress. I didn't know that you could research or care or go deep, or I had to show up and stand in my light on a spot and say words that were given to me. There was no kind of real connection. And I think that I didn't feel totally adept at it, very comfortable with it, because I didn't have a place of real connection with any of my earlier roles. And I think that it felt a little bit dangerous to me, because if I got at all lost in any of those people, which you can, there would be certain times when something would happen and maybe it was in a stunt and for 1 second Brooke would get scared or I would get hurt or something. And those moments were so terrifying to me, because what if you don't get a call sheet for that? What if my mom wasn't there? What if something really did happen that was bad? And what if they weren't really my friends? Or like there's the weird thing that happens. And so I thought, okay, you cannot let these characters or these roles or these people or any of this be your real life. The minute it starts to be your real life, well, newsflash, you become a better actress. It's another story, but where does Brooke go? Like, I think that there was just like, I didn't know if I was going to be safe in it. But if I could keep my sense of humor and be Brooke the clown, then I could prove to the people watching, the grips and gaffers and electricians and stuff, that I had a real life.
You've written a book.
I have yet another one. I didn't think I was going to write another one. And
tell me about this one, and I love the title.
Brooke Shields is not allowed to get old. It's sort of a concept that when I was younger, my mom and I would talk about, the James Deans and the Marilyn Monroes and the people that we did lose younger. And we would talk about it. And I'm not comparing myself to any of those people, but when you are someone in the public eye and your persona, your look, your whatever is a focal point, if that person dies looking like that person, the one we knew and fell in love with, that we imprinted on, they stay that person forever. Unless you may be Audrey Hepburn, who managed to really stay that person, I believe. But if you are one of those people and you become imprinted on at a young age, a youthful face, just regularly getting older is almost viewed as a disappointment. I mean, Marilyn Monroe's a perfect example. If I saw her as an 80-year-old woman, I'd go, oh, but she's in there somewhere. Like you miss her. You miss the one you fell in love with and looked up to and thought of, or whatever it is. And I think psychologically it's a very interesting thing. But from a person who's that person, you really have to do a lot of work on yourself internally to be okay with not also being disappointed with yourself.
Right.
Because I don't look, everything's lower and
Yeah.
and like, you know, and it's a shock. It was a shock to me the first time I saw a wrinkle on a monitor because I thought something was in the film.
Yeah.
I was like, he was like, oh,
They got
like
a
this
hair on the
sweet
lens.
thing. Yeah, it's
Something
got to
like
be
that.
a hair in the lens.
Definitely.
It's definitely I believe, a very American thing. I think you go to Europe or I'm not sure about the UK as much, but definitely in Italy and France, there is a certain respect and reverence for beauty, mature beauty. We have not figured that out yet. I hope it's changing a bit, and I think I'm hoping to contribute to that. But it goes beyond youth obsessed. You know, it's
Is there, I mean, and I think particularly it is more for women, and I've been thinking of it as I'm getting to 60, this idea that somehow you disappear. I think aging is hard, but I think it might be, I was wondering if it's even more complicated for somebody whose life has been defined by something they did when they were so young.
That is a definite contributor to all of it. I think I got lucky in the fact that somewhere along the line, and I think it started at university, I knew that I had to find value beyond the surface and looks and beauty, because it was such a part of my upbringing and who I was, you know, to people.
What you were known for.
Mm-hmm. Not myself, because I avoided looking in the mirror and I couldn't see what other people saw, so therefore it was uncomfortable to me, and I just didn't want to get to know that too much. But I knew I needed to have other things. So when you start to write books or take jobs in other mediums and learn different skills, Broadway, speaking, all of those things that sort of add to you as a human being, the onus of just looking a certain way or on the face of a decade, which is ridiculous in and of itself. And it was a pretty face, but you know, really, like it's interesting to me. But I nurtured other things always as a response to it not being just about beauty.
In writing the book, have you also, and maybe just in the process of growing older, and you and I have actually talked about this for the book, are there upsides to being your age now compared to 10, 20, 30 years ago?
There's so many upsides. And I think that there's a freedom to it. And there's so many different factors that when you delve into them, you understand why this is a prime of our life in a way that is focused on just us. Not our biological clock, not societal pressures, not all of these things that we operate by, because your time runs out. And you've got to do this by that age, you got to do that by that age. And then, you know, so there's this like forward, ooh, and then all of a sudden, you know, your kids start leaving, or your time starts looking different, and you start to get to know yourself differently and actually like what you see and who you are. You get to know why you're a good friend, why you've been a good mother, that you actually have talent. That I would have never said that in my younger days. Like, it's all these things, and you sort of just, you don't wake up and mind your sags and everything, but you just kind of go, I mean, I got this far. I healed from pretty crazy stuff. I had humans in me and then feeding off of me. You know, it's like pretty cool if you think about it. So there's something about, I was at a premiere the other night for Broadway, and like everybody who was famous was there, you know, for Andrew Lloyd Webber to, I don't know, sitting behind Anna Wintour, and and everywhere you looked, and there was like a famous person. And that environment for me as a kid was just, if I could have brought my autograph book, I would have. And I was in awe, always. And until like not too long ago, because I always put myself sort of at the lower and looked up to them as successful because of their talent, not longevity or lasting power, which is what I always attributed to myself. And I didn't even own my intellect. Like they were, I looked up.
Says the woman who went to Princeton.
Yeah, that's the crazy piece, right? And it wasn't until my later years, and I walked around not with any type of arrogance or anything like that, with a comfort, and could walk up to people, introduce myself or say hi, knew most of them or had met them before. And I went back and I sat down and I said to the friend who was with me, I said, I think I finally understand all of this. Everything that I've done and been and seen and grown from and learned gives me the opportunity to not be intimidated by any of these people in these rooms. I can admire them, I can look up to them and love their talent. I don't have to be, I've never been jealous. I've been intimidated, scared that I'm not good enough. That's not even envy. It's like a different thing. And I can be good enough. I'm as good as whatever I used to hold up on a pedestal. And that took decades. And that's just my trajectory, but
You don't feel like a fraud anymore.
I don't feel like a fraud, and I feel I can have a point of reference, and I've earned it, and it's from a versatile career, and still being here, and still having jobs lined up, and a varied career. Like, it's pretty great. I didn't disappear.
Brooke Shields, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was really nice.